Hiya! Welcome to LSB Feasters Radio Channel, where we keep great radio from the past alive. And today we're going to Orlando, Florida, which is actually my home base. I actually host a morning show right here at WPOZ Z88.3 in Orlando. And today we're going to feature Scott and Casey. Scott and Casey were a kind of popular weekend show on KFI Los Angeles. They did a lot of fill-in. They were there for many years at KFI. Sounded great, I thought. Some people actually said they sounded a little like KFI's afternoon show, John and Ken. Well, Scott and Casey finally had the opportunity to leave KFI and go do their own afternoon show in Orlando. And they were at 580 WDBO. Now, they were there for about a year or so. Management hired them knowing the type of show they were doing. But once they got there, it seemed like they were running into a lot of headwinds with management. And, well, it was probably a little over the top for WDBO, which is a very conservative talk station. And Scott and Casey, well, they're kind of out there. By the way, a big thank you to Casey Bartholomew, who provided this air check. Give them a listen. It's Scott and Casey on 580 WDBO Orlando.
News Talk 580 WDBO. Thanks for tuning in to the Scott and Casey Show. He's Scott and I and Casey, 610 on a Thursday afternoon, and this is where we talk about the issues that you really care about on the lowest rated talk show in all of Central Florida.
Scott and Casey with you. Weekday afternoons from 3 until 7 o'clock as you head home from work right here on WDBO.
Just a minute, we're going to talk to you about your airline horror stories. But first, it's time for a little good news.
Always like the good news.
This story coming out of Indianapolis. A man paralyzed from his waist down jumped into well, I guess he couldn't jump. Probably rolled into a swimming pool to rescue a drowning woman. Quoted as saying, "I just did what anyone else should do," Daryl Coulson said. Coulson was leaving the pool area in an apartment complex Tuesday evening when a woman yelled that another woman was on the bottom of the pool. No word yet on why the yelling woman didn't jump in and try to save her.
Right.
Hey, go get that handicapped guy. He'll jump in the water. Didn't want to mess my hair. Coulson, who swims for therapy, rolled his wheelchair to the pool edge and dove in, fishing 20-year-old Oraine Williams from 8 feet of water.
And what was her excuse? I mean, you know, I'm sure she wasn't a paraplegic, right?
No, she was just stupid.
She had two good working legs, and the guy who had no legs could swim better than her?
So he was given a Happy Times Becky doll from the new Barbie.
Stop it. He was not.
Barbie in wheelchairs.
He was not.
Yeah.
Nice and cold and insensitive of you, though.
Can't roll through the Barbie dream house, though.
Why is it that you have to give some wonderfully heartwarming news and then sort of drag it through the mud, as it were? Now, it's not even mud you were dragging it through. I just can't say what it really was.
Bad mud.
Dog dirt.
It was funny, that's why. Another story coming out of Indianapolis.
Good news?
Well, yeah, sort of. Children won't have to take extra money to summer camp to pay a fee every time they sing a copyrighted song around the campfire anymore, apparently.
Right. I remember when they were starting to do that.
The American Camping Association and ASCAP, the American Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers, have reached an agreement setting nominal fees for the right to use the music. ASCAP last year notified about 6,000 camps that they must pay fees for 4 million copyright tunes, everything from Happy Birthday to God Bless America. Those fees would have ranged from $77 to $257 a year per campground. The association represents about 2,000 summer camps nationwide, meaning that ASCAP would have charged people, kids, Boy Scout troops, to sing copyrighted songs around the campfire there.
Yeah, if I could think of one group, if I had to pick one group that should be exempt from that, I would think a bunch of kids singing around a campfire.
I know. How much money do the greedy songwriters think they're going to make from the Boy Scouts singing their songs around campfire? How much money are they losing, I guess would be a better question, by Boy Scouts singing their songs around campfire.
Really quickly, for those of us who thought this never existed, who thought this was sort of a figment of movie makers' imagination.
The Loch Ness Monster has been found. No, what?
No, I was eating lunch today. A woman was sitting in the booth in front of me, minding her own business, reading a book, eating some pizza. A man walked up to her, and I kid you not, actually said, "So, Do you come here often?
I guess what's your sign was a...
Yeah, I guess
someone else had that one.
Maybe on the spot he couldn't think of that one. I don't know. It was I sat there and I looked around and everybody else heard him and we all were sort of snickering under our breath. She goes, yeah, it's the best pizza in town. He goes, all right, well, I'll see ya. You retard.
Boy, I thought she would rip her top off and just jump on him for that one. Boy, hey.
You come here often? I will from now on. Big boy, why don't you take a seat?
That's why I don't have an opening line, because I know women are smarter than men think they are. So I just don't even bother trying.
I just never
I stumbled upon my wife by accident. She's none the wiser, so it just doesn't matter.
She's none the wiser. I never actually believed anybody ever actually said that. I thought that was only for, like, the bad guy in the movie in a bar.
Probably some geek that worked at a radio station. So, yeah, 6:15 now. This is the low-rated Scott and Casey show on News Talk 580, WDBO. DPO is different. They play like alternative rock, something like that. Yeah. WDBO. It's summertime now, which means living's not easy if you have to fly, according to Thomas E. Cantanzaro. He's a frequent flyer who says that, quote, "This is the season of kids, unstamped boarding passes, people fighting with flight attendants because they don't like the rules, and basically the slow boat neophyte traveler.
Wow.
This is the season of tension for all."
What about the pseudo-intellectual who uses big words like neophyte? I bet he's pretty annoying, too,
He's a business traveler. He is a pseudo-intellectual. If you think it's worse than ever, you're right. Airports are busier. Arrivals and departures climbed 40.7% between August 1992 and August of 96, according to Airports Association's Council International, and planes are packed. Ed Perkins, who's the editor of Consumer Reports Travel Letter, he says, "We're seeing the fruits of fare wars when airlines sold out all the cheap seats. Every plane I get on now is full or close to it. Airlines are recording the highest load factors since World War II. Load factors are reaching 65 to 75%, and that doesn't include non-revenue passengers like airline employees, frequent flyers, and crews. Travelers have gotten used to counting on an empty middle seat to give them breathing room, and that seat's not empty anymore." What he's talking about is when families travel and bring a herd of screaming children on the plane who they let do whatever they want to, including pop up over the top of the seat and glare down on you and kick the back of your seat and make loud vroom vroom car noises when they're playing, and they're loud obnoxious little video games, and fat people who take up the middle seat and then spill over onto everybody else's seat, making you all uncomfortable, and just basically just any imaginable horror story you can think of on an airplane is going on right now because it's summertime and everybody's getting out and traveling. Slow people, stupid people, everything you can possibly think of.
And we want to find out from you, what sort of encounter have you had? Any of the above that Casey rambled off? By the way, you sounded very personal. It sounded like you had a serious problem.
I've been flying a lot lately, ever since I've been involved with my wife,
I never used
Brooke.
to fly, and now we're flying a lot.
Yeah, I fly to Missouri, I fly to California, I've flown to Florida, I've been to Atlanta, St. Louis, I've been all over hell. And I just, people are just starting to annoy me more and more on the airplane. We want to hear your airplane, your air travel horror stories, whatever went wrong with you, and we'll tell you more about what's going on in the airways right now. Numbers here, 290-0058, 290-0058, toll free, 1-800-329-5858, 1-800-329-5858, or hit pound 580 on your AT&T wireless services phone. The call is free.
Back with more.
Don't have them? Ask them to order them for you.
Right now it's 82 degrees at News Talk 580 WDBO, Central Florida's news, weather, and traffic station. Now to News Talk, and here she is.
News Talk 580 WDBO. Thanks for tuning in to the Scott and Casey show. He's Scott and I'm Casey. 6:23 now on a Thursday afternoon.
Scott and Casey with you till 7 o'clock tonight. Stay tuned tomorrow morning for Central Florida's morning news with Jim Turner right here on WDBO.
What are you giggling at?
I just did something wrong, that's all.
In the corner. We're talking about
I'll be in the corner.
Your airline horror stories, your airline travel horror stories, because it's summertime, and frequent flyers like Thomas Cantanzaro say this is the season of kids, unstamped boarding passes, people fighting with flight attendants because they don't like the rules, and basically the slow boat neophyte traveler. It's a bad time because there are more people on planes, it's cheaper to fly, and you get locked in behind kids screaming and kicking your chair, you get stuck behind smelly old people who take their time. You get locked in there next to a fat person whose girth is spilling out over into your seat. It's not
girth. Yuck.
It's not fair to you. It's
It's
what
just an
happens.
ugly word.
Well, it's true.
I had only been on a plane maybe twice in my life before we started with the deal to come here.
Yeah, I remember.
I'd been once to Hawaii and then once to Las Vegas, which was only at the time about a 40-minute flight.
Mm-hmm.
I do not fly very well.
No, you don't.
I'm not one of these guys who needs a barf bag and I'm like throwing up all over
No,
the
you're
place.
just terrified about everything. Every 2 seconds, it's like slamming me in the arm. Is that normal? Does that have happened?
Well, because when
is that a gremlin?
when I'm sitting there in an airplane and all of a sudden the whole thing feels like we're like rocketing to the earth, I might be a little inquisitive as to whether or not that's normal.
See, I get to a certain point in the air. I like fly to a certain point. Like I don't know how far it is. I judge by looking out the window and seeing. Where I just pretty much kind of write it off. This is it. I'm gonna die if anything happens now, and that's pretty much all there is to it.
Because we've talked about this before, and we've done hours on what your greatest fears are, and yours are sharks in the water. My greatest fear in the world is not crashing in an airplane. Mine is being sucked out.
Wait, I have a story here.
Yeah, as if part of the airplane were to rip off. And I went sucked out and hurled through space on my own without a parachute or anything and hit the ground.
Here it is. In Sao Paulo, Brazil, a passenger was sucked out of a passenger jet and fell to his death after explosion possibly caused by a bomb tore a hole in the fuselage, the airline said.
You see? And you know what's funny is I'm not nearly as afraid of going down in a plane. If the plane goes down and crashes and we all blow up and die, that's scary. Yeah, sure, I'll give you that. But me being sucked out and hurling through space on my own has got to be the worst thing that could ever happen to me.
You'd die before you hit the ground.
And so I'm constantly very vigilant of what's going on. I don't want to sit next to the emergency
well, I don't
door.
want to sit next to you, okay?
What was wrong with sitting next to me?
What's that?
For the most part, I sit there in relative silence, just with white knuckles.
You were even cowardice before we got on the plane. When we flew out of here once, I was going to Kansas City, and Scott was going on to California, and I had made it to the front of the line. I told him to come up to the front with me. He's like, no, I don't want my luggage to go to Kansas City. I was like, no, they'll mark it different, okay? I promise. Come on over here.
There's just way too many things to worry about when it comes to flying.
Well, we want to hear your airline air travel horror stories. The number is 290-0058, 290-0058. Toll free 1-800-329-5858, 1-800-329-5858, or hit pound 580 on your AT&T wireless services phone, and the call is free. Let's go to Susan now. Susan, you're on News Talk 580 WDBO with Scott and Casey. Go ahead. Susan.
Yes.
You're on.
Oh, okay. Well, we had the flight from hell going from California back to Orlando recently.
That's a flight from hell anyway. Yeah.
Everything went wrong.
What happened?
Well, first we were supposed to get a commuter flight from San Jose to Los Angeles and catch a flight from Los Angeles back to Orlando.
Jeez, you were just signing up for punishment, weren't you?
Well, my husband wasn't looking forward to that because he knows what commuter flights are like, and he said they're really bad.
Yeah, they're terrible. I've been on them.
Well, the worst part was that it had mechanical difficulty, so they canceled that flight, and we missed our flight connection from Los Angeles, so they had to connect us to a later flight. So we finally got, and we would have came in 3 hours later than our original time.
Anything bad happen on the flight?
Well, yes. We finally got on the flight, and everything seemed to go okay, except there was a child that kept crying every few minutes at the top of their lungs.
You know what? It's actually the crying children I don't really have a problem with because some of them are kind of young and they don't really know what's going on. It's the ones that the parents don't pay any attention to and let them run up and down the halls and let them kick the back of your chair and throw stuff and play their loud video games and all that kind of nonsense.
So I had a daughter who went on a flight three times. Went on a plane before she was a year old, and she never cried, ever.
Yeah, well, you just have the perfect little angel, don't you?
I do.
Did anything else happen, or was that just it? Just annoying kids? Or
No, that was just the start of it.
Uh-oh.
Keep going.
Well, it looked like we were coming in on time, the time we were supposed to, or even a little early, and I thought, well, that's good. And then my husband, who was listening to the channel for the cockpit, said, uh-oh, and I said, what's the matter? And he said that he heard that we were going to be in a holding pattern for at least an hour. And I was already really anxious to get there because we were already in the airport walking around for hours, and we were in the plane for like 6 hours, and I was just anxious to get out of there and get home. And it was really late at night already. And I thought, no, and I was getting really upset. He said, calm down.
You already lose 3 hours flying in from the West Coast to come into Orlando anyway, so it's bad enough from that respect. So it's just that sounds like a pretty bad flight with all the waiting and the screaming children and such and the holding patterns. That's the worst thing about flying is the holding patterns. When you can look down and see Orlando.
Right. And we kept circling over and over.
So close,
right
yet
here.
so
Let's
far
just
away.
Just let me out here. We're here.
I'll walk down.
We're here. Don't bother me with all those planes that are leaving. We're here. Let's stop. Come on. Susan, thanks for calling Scott and Casey on AM 580 WDBO. Wow.
Oh, well, that wasn't what. Well, then they, after being on a holding pattern for like an hour and a half, they said that we might be having to go back to Tampa if we couldn't get in the next 5 minutes because it was a thunderstorm and
we got to wrap this up real quick here, Susan. What happened?
Well, I was getting really upset because I thought, Tampa? We can't go back to Tampa. What are we going to do there? So, because we were already on a plane for like 7 hours, and I was just getting real upset. My husband was trying to calm me down, and he was getting mad at me because I was having
because you were getting all worked up. Okay,
right.
Susan, we got to run. Thanks for calling Scott and Casey on AM 580 WDBO. Yeah, that's the worst thing is all the holding patterns and the waiting. We're talking about your airline horror stories, the worst things that happened to you while you were traveling on a plane. Coming up, we're going to talk to Alice, and we'll take your phone calls as well at 290-0058, 290-0058, toll-free 1-800-329-5858, 1-800-329-5858, or just hit pound 580 on your AT&T wireless service. News Talk 580 WDBO. Thanks for tuning in to the Scott and Casey Show. He's Scott and I'm Casey. 6:39 on a Thursday afternoon, and this is where we talk about the issues you really care about on the lowest rated talk show in all of Central Florida.
Who does this song?
Sugar.
Let's keep it that way, shall we?
Woohoo!
Scott and Casey with you till 7 o'clock
Sugar
tonight.
featuring Casey Bartholomew on air guitar.
Darn.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. We're with you till 7 o'clock tonight, Monday through Friday, from 3 to 7 right here on News Talk 580 WDBO.
Just walked out of a high-level meeting in the men's room between our general manager, Bill Hendrick, and our effeminate program director, Pete Spriggs.
Really?
Yeah.
What were they doing in the restroom?
I got the impression that Hendrick was just trying to get the hell out of there because it's pretty commonplace, common knowledge around the radio station. You don't want to be in the men's room alone with Pete.
No.
You know, it's really... I mean, if you're going to be in there, it's okay if you got the stall door closed. But
Did the conversation start with Pete saying, I can't help but admire your situation, Bill?
Anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting that the high-level meetings were going on in the men's room. And
were they each in like in the bathroom stalls having discussions through the walls to each other? Or?
Pete was looking over Bill's shoulder. I don't know what that was all about. 6:40 now. This is the low-rated Scott and Casey show on News Talk 580 WDBO. Your airline horror stories now. It's summertime. It's the season of smelly old people taking their time as they walk up the aisles. Children kicking the back of your chair or looking over the back of their chair so they can stare down on you, playing their loud video games. Fat people taking up a seat and a half while there's two people supposed to be sitting next to them.
On our final trip out here, that happened to me with a kid banging the back of my chair. I don't even think you noticed it. You were sitting next to me at the time, and this kid kept banging. And I did the half turn where you start to look over your shoulder, and you stop, but you don't quite look at them yet and think that maybe they'll get the hint. And bang, bang, bang. So finally I turn around and I look at him completely. We're looking at each other, dead on, straight in the eyes. He's staring at me, and I'm staring at him. I'm Mad Dog and a 5-year-old. I don't know what's going on in my brain.
It's a game of chicken right there.
And, we're staring at each other. I turn back around. Bang, bang, bang. Finally, I'm watching the mother completely oblivious to what her kid is doing. Completely. And me, of course, being the spineless wimp that I am, never said anything. But I was
the mom looked tough.
I was so angry at the fact that she could just be not be bothered with what her kid was doing and not even look over at him and say, hey, what are you doing? Stop that. Leave that man alone. I've been holding on to that for 3 months, ladies and gentlemen.
You feel better now?
Much.
So we want to hear your airplane, your air travel horror stories. The number's here, 290-0058, 290-0058, toll-free 1-800-329-5858, 1-800-329-5858, or just hit pound 580 on your AT&T wireless services phone, and the call is free. Let's talk to Alice. Alice, you're on News Talk 580 WDBO with Scott and Casey. Go ahead.
Hi, I just wanted to point out some of the real problems of flying out of Orlando because of all the attractions and everything that we have.
Everybody's got Disney bags full of nonsense that they try to carry on the plane. That's one thing I've noticed.
And it's like everyone who's on a budget vacation, nothing wrong with it.
No.
But they all want to come to Orlando, and the people who are on the tightest budgets fly early in the morning or late at night. And, they probably have not been out of their state before.
Uh-huh.
So they're like in awe of the plane, and they're taking their time, and they've never been anywhere. And, they're getting in the way. But worse than that, they want to fly late at night so that they can get in their full day of getting their kids all cranky and gassed up before they get on the plane. So then you're sitting there, and, the plane is starting to smell, the kids are starting to scream, it's 11 o'clock at night, you can't get your laptop open, and you just really want to,
You know what, Elise? The last time I flew out of Orlando to St. Louis. And there were these kids sitting directly in front of my wife and I, and they kept flipping on and off the little reading lamp up top. It's like click, click. Wow, look, hey, Mom, it's got a light. Click, 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 click. It's like, geez.
Because they don't have electricity at their house.
Yeah,
Apparently
somehow
not.
this is an incredible new invention, the whole concept of light when you want it.
And, it's really not so much the problem with the kids. It's all the people who come to Orlando who have really never been out of doors before. And it just drives you insane.
Well, see,
so that's my comment.
All right, Elise, thanks for calling Scott and Casey on News Talk 580
She's
WDBO.
Right. We were on our last leg of our last trip here, finally to move in and have it be done, and we were like, 20 minutes from landing, and there was a whole family in front of me. There were like three young boys, like between 7 and 10, a 14-year-old girl who was complaining constantly complaining.
I remember her.
Remember her?
Yeah, what was it? Oh, she's like going to miss her. It was like typical teenage nonsense about how she wasn't going to see all her friends or make all her phone calls or something like that. And she was just like, it was the end of the world.
What do you
for this
mean
girl.
we're not going to go to Pleasure Island? What do you mean we're not going to go to Pleasure Island?
Oh my God! It was that kind of stuff.
Oh my God!
Yeah, and every time I've flown out of here or gone to the airport to drop because my wife took a while for my wife to move out here, and she came out here a couple of times first. Every time we've gone to the airport, there's been like a bunch of tourists all decked out in their touristy Disney garb with plastic bags with that 25th anniversary Mickey Mouse with that sorcerer's hat design on it. Bags full of that nonsense, and they count those as their they don't count those as their carry-on. So you get on the plane, and they're shoving these Disney bags all over the place, and the kids have all their Disney nonsense all over it. I like Disney as much as the next guy, but, I like it better when it's in the park. I like it better, like, on the ground over in the park where it belongs, not on the airplane sitting in front of me. When we flew to Atlanta, Scott and I.
This was a good one.
Flew out of Orlando into Atlanta.
This wasn't bad for us. This was bad for someone else.
This was terrible for someone else, but this adult woman was making an ass out of herself. She was this little girl. We were about to land in Atlanta, and we were running late anyway. We got a little holding pattern. We got stacked a little bit, and this little girl had to go to the bathroom. They already put on the fasten seatbelt sign, so we're like coming in and preparing to land. We're coming in. This poor little girl is crying. It was really sad.
She really had to go.
They couldn't let this girl up to go to the bathroom because they were landing the plane and she could have gotten hurt in the thing. So, they really just, there was really nothing they could do. And, instead of realizing that, realizing that the crew was acting for the safety of her small child, this woman sitting like in the middle of the plane, it was an L-1011, so it was a big plane, and she was sitting in the middle section. She starts screaming to the flight attendants who had already taken their seats for landing, "My daughter's got to pee her pants!" Like as if the captain can hear this and say, "Oh, okay, I better land this plane now because we're going to have a urinary accident in a moment."
And as if her daughter really wants the entire plane to know that she's going to pee her pants.
I know, and the poor little girl is sitting there crying. It was really sad, but the mother was just being a ridiculous, silly bitch. She was just, my daughter has to go. Could you land the plane? And the funniest part, I wasn't taking joy in the little girl's pain.
This is so awful.
I know, but I loved it because it annoyed the mother because she was being such a ridiculous, such a spectacle. We get landing, right? We're literally, probably inches from the ground.
No, we touched down.
Did we touch down?
We touched down.
I didn't think we touched down, but so we touched down on the back flings only because we were still like at an angle. And then after about 2 seconds, we take off again.
He took back off.
Yeah.
Up into the air
Up
again.
into the air. And
back into the holding pattern.
Had to circle around and wait for clearance to land again because he said the captain came on and announced there was this plane on the runway and it was a little too close. They gave him clearance, but it was a little too close for him. So he just took off again and got out of the way. And,
this poor girl had to hold her pee for probably, 20, 25 minutes?
At least 15, because they wouldn't let her up. And the mother, when that happened, she went like this. We landed, and all of a sudden we take off again. She goes, "Oh, my God!" It's one of those people you wish they would call the federal authorities and have them waiting on the ground to arrest this loudmouth, annoying woman. And I took no pleasure in the pain the little girl was going through, but the woman was getting so aggravated, I almost stood up and applauded. And we want to talk to you about your airline horror stories. It's summertime and everybody's traveling, and you're having to deal with children, smelly people, fat people taking up the whole row, the whole lane, people who don't want to obey the rules, who have never traveled before and have no concept of how it's properly done. Anything that's gone wrong for you, your air travel horror stories. The number's here, 290-0058, 290-0058. Toll free, 1-800-329-5858, 1-800-329-5858, or hit pound 580 on your AT&T wireless services phone, and that call is free.
Back with more of
News Talk 580 WDBO. Thanks for tuning in to the Scott and Casey Show. He's Scott and I'm Casey, 6:53 on a Thursday afternoon. It's tuned in at 6 o'clock. You've been listening for 53 minutes now.
You got Scott and Casey with you for a few more minutes until 7 o'clock. Tomorrow morning, when you wake up, turn on 580 AM and listen to Central Florida's Morning News with Jim Turner right here on WDBO.
Summertime means travel time for the inexperienced traveler, the people who cause problems for you and me. Knowledgeable travelers, airplane enthusiasts.
With all my recent airplane travel, do I now sort of
no, because
qualify as a pro?
You're still a sissy when you fly. That's the problem.
But you know what? I go through the lines quickly. I do all my stuff quickly. I do it like I'm savvy.
You're almost savvy.
Almost?
You're pre-savvy.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah. You're not completely savvy.
I see.
Like me. We want to hear about your horror stories. You've had to deal with screaming children, fat people spilling out over into your seat, slow, smelly old people walking down the aisles, whatever the situation may be. Numbers here, 290-0058, 290-0058. Toll free, 1-800-329-5858, 1-800-329-5858, or hit pound 580 on your AT&T wireless services phone. The call is free. Let's go to Bruce now. Bruce, you're on News Talk 580 WDBO with Scott and Casey. Go ahead.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey, about 2 weeks after the Value Jet crashed in the Everglades last year,
Right.
I had to go to Louisville, but I had to go to Cleveland. And flying on the same type of airplane, a DC-9, but a different carrier. And about 20 minutes out from landing in Cleveland, the captain comes on with this saying, we've had a slight problem with the airplane. Don't be concerned when we land about the fire trucks. They're only there for our safety. All you hear
where is it written that you need two wings to land a plane anyway, huh?
Yeah, well,
Don't be concerned about the fire truck.
I thought you were going to say, don't be concerned about the fire on the edge of the plane.
Yeah, this mothers grabbed all their mouse-eared kids, and they all let out a scream at once because the mothers were hugging them so tight and everything.
I would just think it would be in the best interest of everybody on the plane. If the plane's not on fire, isn't going to blow up, then the captain should just keep it to himself. His own little secret. So, because everybody's going to go nuts. They're all going to start screaming, "We're going to die! We're going to die!"
And you know how hard it is for any of us to see anything out of the airplane. Half the passengers probably wouldn't have even seen them.
Bruce, thanks for calling Scott and Casey on News Talk 580 WDBO. Let's go to Steve now. Steve, you're on News Talk 580 WDBO with Scott and Casey. Go ahead.
Oh, hey, guys. I was just wondering, what is the answer when you get on a plane and because when you have people that just have body odor? How do you delicately handle the situation?
You stink. That's what you say. Dude,
what's your problem?
Stewardess, we need some deodorant over here for the mail-order gentleman in front of me.
And we're recently on a flight where there was a whole large group from France that were flying into Orlando. I'm not picking on them, by the way.
No, it's my rule of life here, Steve, that French people smell. I think that's pretty much commonly accepted throughout the free world. We're out of time. Sorry we couldn't finish your story, Steve, but thanks for calling Scott and Casey on AM 580 WDBO.
Just turn on your little air blower. That's what I do. I just stick my nose in it up in the air as for the entire flight.
That doesn't do it because that's recirculated air throughout the airplane, so the stink is already in the air.
But it gives the illusion. You're getting air in your face, and it just changes. It works for me, though. know.
How many times have I said that you live in a fantasy world, huh? How many times have I brought that up? And now you're trying to ignore the stench of a foul-ordered
what else can you do
French
except
man
try to
sitting
ignore
next to
it?
you with no deodorant,
What on
breaking
earth
wind.
are you going to do about it? Not a damn thing.
I would say you could complain something. Listen, man, you know, if it was a long enough flight, I might say, hey, I got this new deodorant. Will you try it for me, please?
And that's going to make
something subtle like that. We're all out of time. Thanks, everybody, for calling in today. Thanks to Fred for producing and running the board, Robert for co-producing and screening the show, and all of you for listening and calling in.